Do you know about Danielle L. Jensen?
Yes, the Bridge Kingdom.
Bridge Kingdom. She is most famous for Bridge Kingdom, but the series that I'm going to tell you about is not Bridge Kingdom.
I have two more quick questions for you all on fantasy. And the first one is a practical one I'm hoping we can help some people with, which is how do you cure your fantasy book hangovers? For those unfamiliar with what a book hangover is, it's when you are trying to find a book that will make you feel as satisfied as the one that you just finished. Any suggestions for finding new fantasy books?
If I may, I just want to acknowledge that that is a very difficult thing to do. Like when I read a book that's been super satisfying and emotionally wrenching, like what happens is I go down a rabbit hole of like Googling everything related to the author, to like their other books, and watching interviews with them and fan art and like, you know, Googling what inspired them, and then like going down the Wikipedia, like, you know, mad chase of like, this links to this, and like, oh, and somehow I end up on the page for like, you know, the history of Uzbekistan or something, and I don't know how I got there, but that's what tends to happen. But then I guess if I then, because eventually you need to move on to something new, so once so I think reaching out to other people for recommendations is always a really good place to go. There are a few people I trust, including the three of you. So getting recommendations from other people is the best way to go. You guys are my go-to fantasy, you know, trustworthy sources. But for people out there who are fantasy fans, I don't know if you know this, but Tandem has a WhatsApp recommendation service. So if you want a specific kind of book that gives you specific feels, and you don't have to text about a specific genre. So it's not like, oh, can I have a fantasy recommendation? It's, I've just read this and it made me want to die. Can you please tell me another book that's going to make me feel the same? So it really can be very specific, like a specific feeling you're looking for, a specific, you know, author comparison that you're looking for. So you can just text our Tandem WhatsApp number, and then someone will text you back and tell you what you should read.
Yeah, and so Jen, what usually happens is Jen that handles our WhatsApp, she'll text the entire team and say, somebody just asked for a recommendation, what do you all think? So you literally get like over 30 people who are all huge readers, that hive mind recommending you books that you want to read. So definitely check it out. Julianna, how do you cure your book hangovers?
Oh gosh, yeah, sometimes it's hard, but I'm a real voracious reader, so I need something that's fast paced and like that I'll get into really quickly if I'm like bereft about another book. So often I'll switch from fantasy to like a rom-com or something to kind of be like, well, there's no hope of me like replacing these characters that I love from this series. So I'm just going to go for like a fun, quick read. And then I'll feel like okay, now I can dive into like a whole new world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard it called a palate cleanser. Yes, like a lot of people, yeah. My flatmate is also called it that, where you just, you know, that was a lot of feelings with that fantasy. And I just want something simple before I dive into another intense fantasy series. Yeah.
That's exactly what I do. And for me, this sounds weird. It's either romance or it's crime. Those are my two palette cleansers, which sound very weird when put like as I'm using them for the same thing. But no, if I've just read like if it's a really dark romance, I want really dark fantasy, I want romance. If it's quite a light or romance heavy fantasy, I want crime. And it will then just sort of reset, and I can then just go straight back to the next fantasy series on the list.
Yeah. No, I mean, those are all really good suggestions. Usually I just Google, which is unfortunate. And I'm just like, what to read after this book? But on the other hand, bookstagram and TikTok are really good places to go for recommendations if you're looking to read another fantasy directly after. Okay, final question for you all. What fantasy author or book or series do you wish more people knew about?
Oh, can I go first?
Yes.
Because I've got one. I don't have the physical copy because I've just read this one in ebooks. But do you know about Danielle L. Jensen?
Yes, the Bridge Kingdom.
Bridge Kingdom. She is most famous for Bridge Kingdom, but the series that I'm going to tell you about is not Bridge Kingdom. It is her Dark Shores series. So this one, there is, it's a longer series, and it is, I think, categorized as YA. I would say there's still a very heavy romance plot line. So if you don't like romance, this one's not for you. But it is a kind of like Roman Empire inspired fantasy. But it also has a bit of like pirate elements. And you can even start out with either Dark Shores or Dark Skies. Like, it's a really interesting, those two books happen concurrently, and then you can pick which one you want to start with. And I actually think there are pros and cons of both of them. So I'm not going to tell you which one you have to start with. But it is a really fantastic and underrated series that I think everybody should be reading. If you like epic fantasy that's heavy on the romance, but like lots of action, adventure, battles, like chases, like saving the world kind of stuff. It's great.
Amazing. That sounds great. I'm going to check that out because I love the Bridge Kingdom. Jenny, tell us which book or author you think more people should read for fantasy.
I was really racking my brain on this because I'm quite basic and I read what everyone else reads. But for me, this series, and I mentioned it earlier, but it's the Dragon Riders of Pern series by Anne McCaffrey. Yes, it is a 22-book series, but they're all really diddy little books. They're all like less than 300 pages. Kind of a fantasy, and it gets into a bit more sci-fi as you get later on, but it's really, really interesting. So should say, warning, the older books, the first few books, they are fairly old. They were published in the 70s. So there are some things that wouldn't really fly today. Nothing that's too dramatic, but there's a couple bits of treatment with women particularly where you kind of read a line and you go, ooh. But I sort of feel you have to kind of take into account, hang on, this was published, I think the first one was published in like 1966 or something. They're like 50 plus years old. So telling a woman that she has to go and do the cleaning because she's a woman, you can kind of make an allowance because of the age of the book. That does go within about 2 or 3 books. And like I said, it's a very long series. But her son has taken on the series. So the world is still growing. But yeah, it's this beautiful series. It's about basically you've got this planet that, and every 200 years there is this threat called a thread which falls from the sky and it destroys anything organic. A long time ago in the past, dragons were bred, which breathe fire and destroy the threads. And it's basically following this. So you've got the animal companions, the dragons, and the dragon riders have like a psychic link, so they can talk to each other. You've got these like amazing like adventures, and again, dragons are just fab anyway. They mate for life as well, so you've got bits of like couplings in there. One thing that I really like is this series is actually really queer, and especially like at the start you're like, you read and you're like, hang on, this is really gay, this is amazing. But again, it's written in the 60s and 70s, so it's not like really blatant on page. But the dragons, you've got 5 different types of dragons. 2 are female, 3 are male, and only men can ride dragons except the queen dragons. So when the green dragons, which are female, have to breed, their male riders are going to be breeding with other male riders. So it's a super gay series, which I just absolutely love. I was like, this is fantastic. But it's a fantastic series. I really, really recommend it. It's one that I think it's an old school fantasy series, but I feel like it deserves more love in today's age.
Nice. That sounds fascinating. Actually, and I hadn't heard of that one before. Zuzanna, are you able to tell us? Yes.
So I don't know if you guys might have read this, heard of this at least. I don't know. Are you familiar with the Goblin Emperor? No.
I think I've heard of it from you.
Oh yes, because I talk about this book a lot, like a lot. This is my current #1 go-to comfort reread. Anytime I'm feeling down or anything, or if I'm poorly, I will reach for this book and I will go through it again and again and again. And I always kind of discover new things about it. It's a very simple story, very simple. Maya is the 4th son of the emperor. His mother is also goblin born, and obviously nobody likes the goblins. So he's like different from everybody else. So he grows up like in exile completely, never visits court or anything. And then when he's 19, the entire imperial family die in an airship crash. So he inherits this huge kingdom. And suddenly he has to somehow discover the confidence to rule a kingdom that's got like really intricate bureaucratic systems in place. So when he gets there, he's actually one of the most decent people that's ever come to court, and everybody's shocked by his decency. And he slowly gets the hang of it, and slowly kind of starts to introduce a new way of ruling at this. And that's it. That's the story. Like there's no evil overlord to overthrow, nothing like that. It's just this 19-year-old figuring out how to deal with his new life. And he's a decent person who's been thrust into an impossible situation. And it's gorgeously told, beautifully intricate, and so soothing because of all the goodness of the main character. I really recommend this, you guys. Please read it, please.
I've just placed a hold on it at my library.
Your pitch worked. I will just share mine really quick before we wrap up, of an author on a series I wish more people knew of, and the author is Cora Carmack, who, if you're a romance or YA reader, you may recognize. She has multiple romance series, but after many years of writing romance, she came out with her first fantasy book, and it's now billed as, I think, a new adult fantasy. It is romantasy as well, and it is called Roar. And in this world, you have a lot of these magical storms of all different kinds. And so the rulers are called stormlings because they can control the storms. However, this princess, Aurora, was born without this power. So rather than having a secret power, she has to keep the fact that she doesn't have the power to control the storms a secret from the kingdom. Yes. So, naturally there's a quest that follows, and she learns a lot about how other people relate to the storms, and almost like a kind of like an underworld of what's it called? Like black market trade surrounding the storms and keeping you safe. And also she starts learning that the storms are cognizant, like they're alive. And each one of them has a heart. That's like a gem. So, highly recommend, Roar. And then the second one is Rage. The third one hasn't come out yet. It's called Rain. And yeah, all of these books will be in the description below. I'm going to wrap up our chat because we've gone on for a very long time.
And it's so bad for our TBR, you guys. This chat is insanely bad for our TBR.
Please let us know what you think in the comments. Give us a like. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And also, if there are subgenres of fantasy that you'd like us to do specific videos on or talk more about, let us know in the comments, and we will do that very, very happily. Thank you, Jenny, Juliana, and Zuzanna, for being with us today and giving up your time to talk fantasy. To you watching, we'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much.